In the small, quiet town of Willow Creek, Ohio, people woke up early every morning, but one woman was always up before them. Her name was Sarah Miller. Sarah was a single mother, raising her 10-year-old daughter Emily all by herself. Every day, she worked 3 jobs: as a waitress at a diner in the morning, a cleaner at a local office in the afternoon, and a cashier at a gas station at night. While most people slept, Sarah was still on her feet, her hands tired, her eyes heavy, but her heart strong. To the neighbors, she was just another woman struggling to make ends meet. But to Emily, she was a superhero, a woman who could do anything. Every morning, Emily woke up to the sound of the front door closing. Her mom had already left for her first job. But on the kitchen table, there was always a little note written in Sarah's soft handwriting. "Good morning, my sunshine. Remember to smile today." Sometimes there was a simple lunchbox next to it, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and 1 cookie. Emily would smile every time she saw it. She knew her mom had made it, even if she hadn't slept a minute. At school, Emily was quiet. She didn't talk much about her life. Her classmates talked about vacations, video games, or their dads picking them up from school. Emily listened, smiled, and went home walking because her mom was always at work. But Emily never complained. Every night, she waited near the window, watching the street light outside. Around 11 p.m., she would finally see her mom walking home, her hair messy, her uniform wrinkled, but her face still carrying a smile. Emily would run to her, hug her tightly, and whisper, "You're home, Mom." Sarah would hug her back, even though her arms ached from the day. Then she would say softly, "I'm fine, honey. Just a little tired. Did you eat dinner?" Emily would nod, even if she hadn't. She didn't want her mom to worry. That was their life, simple, hard, but full of love. One cold evening in December, Emily was doing her homework when she heard the wind pushing against the windows. The house was small, and the roof leaked when it rained. Sarah wasn't home yet. It was almost midnight when the door finally opened, and Sarah stepped in wet, tired, and shivering. She placed her bag down and forced a smile. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. The last bus broke down. Did you eat?" Emily nodded again, but her eyes filled with worry. She wanted to ask, "Why do you work so much, Mom?" But she didn't. She knew the answer. Sarah dried her hair with a towel, sat beside Emily, and looked at her homework. "You're doing great," she said softly. "You're going to go to college one day. You'll have the life I couldn't have." Emily looked at her mother's face. She saw the deep lines under her eyes, the tiredness behind her smile. That night, after her mom went to sleep, Emily tiptoed into the attic. It was an old, dusty space filled with boxes and memories. She wanted to find something, maybe a photo of her mom when she was young. As she moved an old blanket, she saw a small box labeled Sarah's Dreams. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a worn-out notebook, a few photos, and some letters. She opened the notebook and started to read. On the first page were words written in her mom's handwriting. "Dreams I gave up for Emily." Emily froze. Her heart beat faster. She turned the pages slowly. Each line was simple but heavy. "I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to travel to California. I wanted to open a small bakery. I wanted to sleep without worrying about tomorrow." Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks. Her mom had given up everything, every dream, every wish, just so she could have a chance at life. She sat there in the attic for a long time, holding the notebook close to her chest. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but Emily didn't hear it. All she could think about was how much her mom had sacrificed. The next morning, when Sarah woke up for work, she saw Emily already sitting at the table, looking serious. "Mom," Emily said softly, "why don't you rest today?" Sarah smiled, even though her body ached. I wish I could, honey. But we have bills to pay. She brushed Emily's hair gently and said, one day, everything will be better. I promise. Emily nodded, but she didn't believe in that kind of someday anymore. She wanted to make it happen. She looked at her mother leaving for work again, walking down the street, holding her old purse, her jacket too thin for the cold. Something inside Emily changed that morning. She didn't know how, but she made a silent promise. One day, Mom, I'll give those dreams back to you. She looked at the notebook again before leaving for school and whispered, this is my mission now. And from that moment, Emily's life and Sarah's would never be the same again. After that night in the attic, Emily was not the same. Something deep inside her had changed. She went to school every day, but her thoughts were somewhere else, with her mom, with that notebook, with those lost dreams. When her friends talked about summer trips or new clothes, Emily just smiled quietly. She didn't care about those things anymore. All she wanted was to help her mother smile, a real smile, not the tired one she wore every day. Every morning, Sarah still left before sunrise. She would pack her old purse, tie her hair, and kiss Emily's forehead before leaving. And every morning, Emily would whisper to herself, just a little longer, Mom. I'll fix everything soon. Sarah's days were endless. She worked as a waitress at Dale's Diner, cleaning tables and pouring coffee for customers who barely noticed her. Then she went to the local office building to clean desks and empty trash bins. At night, she stood behind the counter at a gas station, forcing herself to stay awake. Her feet hurt, her hands cracked, but she never complained. People at the diner liked her because she was kind. Some regular customers noticed her hard work, but no one really knew how much she was struggling. At the end of every month, after paying rent and bills, she had only a few dollars left. Sometimes, she skipped dinner just to make sure Emily had enough to eat. But no matter how tired she was, she always left a note for Emily. Keep studying, sweetheart. Your future is my dream. Emily, now 15, started to grow up faster than other kids her age. She began helping around the house, cooking simple meals, cleaning, and even doing small jobs after school. She babysat for neighbors, mowed lawns, and saved every penny she could. But even with that, it wasn't enough. One day, she found her mom asleep at the kitchen table, still in her uniform, her hands wrapped around a half-empty cup of coffee. Her eyes were red, her shoulders shaking slightly. Emily quietly placed a blanket over her mom and whispered, one day, Mom. I'll make you rest. I promise. That night, she took out the notebook again, dreams I gave up for Emily. She read one line over and over again. I wanted to open a small bakery. She imagined her mom standing behind a counter filled with cakes and bread, smiling at happy customers. That image stayed in her mind. It became her secret goal. Years passed. Emily worked hard in school and continued her part-time jobs. Sarah, however, was getting weaker. Her long hours, little sleep, and poor diet were slowly breaking her down. One rainy night, Sarah didn't come home at her usual time. Emily sat by the window, watching the street, her heart pounding. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. Still no sign of her mother. Just when she was about to call the police, her phone rang. It was her mom's coworker. Emily, the voice said urgently, your mom collapsed at work. We called an ambulance. She's at the hospital. Emily dropped the phone and ran out into the rain without an umbrella. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she rushed to the hospital, tears mixing with raindrops. When she arrived, she saw her mom lying on a hospital bed, pale and weak. A nurse gently guided Emily to a chair. She's okay now, the nurse said softly, but she's exhausted. Her body needs rest. Moments later, the doctor came in. He looked serious as he said, Your mother's body is overworked. She can't keep doing this, or she'll collapse again, maybe worse next time. Emily sat quietly, her hands trembling. She looked at her mom sleeping, the beeping of the monitor echoing in the room. That moment, she made a promise, not out loud, but deep in her heart. No more, Mom. You won't live like this anymore. I'll find a way. When Sarah woke up, she smiled weakly. Emily. I'm fine, she whispered. Emily held her hand and shook her head. No, Mom. You're not fine. You can't keep doing this. Sarah tried to laugh it off. Honey, that's just life. You work hard, and someday you'll be okay. But Emily wasn't listening. She had already made up her mind. That night, while Sarah slept in the hospital bed, Emily sat by the window looking out at the city lights. She thought about her mother's dreams, the bakery, the nurse's uniform, the trip to California. She thought about every time her mom had said, "One day, it'll be better." And suddenly, an idea formed in her mind. It was small, impossible maybe, but it was something. A spark. She pulled out her phone and searched for how to start a business online. She read stories of people who built their lives from nothing: single moms, students, dreamers. She thought, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Emily didn't sleep that night. She made notes, ideas, plans, all about one goal: make her mom's dream come true. When Sarah was discharged from the hospital a few days later, she didn't notice the quiet determination in her daughter's eyes. She just thought Emily was worried. But Emily wasn't just worried, she was preparing. For something big. For something that would change everything. That evening, as her mom went to bed early, Emily sat at the same kitchen table where Sarah used to write those morning notes. She opened the old notebook again, and beside the line, "I wanted to open a small bakery," she wrote in her neat handwriting. "I'll do it for you, Mom." She looked up at the clock: midnight. A new day had begun. And so had Emily's mission. After the hospital night, Emily couldn't sleep for days. Her mother was resting at home, trying to act strong, but Emily could see the truth. Sarah's hands trembled when she poured tea. Her breathing was slower. Even walking a few steps made her tired. But she still said the same words every morning. "Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I'm fine." Emily smiled, but deep down, she knew things couldn't go on like this. Bills kept coming. Rent was due. And her mom refused to stop working. One evening, while Sarah slept on the couch, Emily sat by the kitchen table with her old notebook: "Dreams I gave up for Emily." Her eyes stopped again at one line. "I wanted to open a small bakery." She whispered softly. "I'll make this real, Mom. Somehow." But she had no money, no business, and no one to help. She was just 17, a high school girl with hope in her heart and an old phone in her hand. The next day, Emily got an idea. She remembered how people online shared stories, how sometimes videos went viral and changed lives. What if she shared her mom's story with the world? Maybe someone would listen. Maybe someone would care. So she created a YouTube channel. She called it Hope in a Lunchbox. The name came from her childhood. Every morning, her mom packed her lunch with a small note saying, "Keep smiling." Emily thought, that's what mom does, she gives hope in small ways. Her first video was simple. She filmed her mom's old shoes by the door, her tired hands folding laundry, the clock showing midnight as Sarah still cleaned the kitchen. Her voice played softly in the background. "My name is Emily Miller. My mom works 3 jobs to raise me. She hasn't slept properly in years. Her dream was to open a bakery, but she gave it up for me. I want to give it back to her." She uploaded the video and went to sleep, not expecting much. For days, nothing happened. 10 views. Then 20. A few likes. No comments. Emily started to lose hope. One night, Sarah came home early and saw her editing a video. "What are you working on, honey?" she asked, smiling tiredly. Emily froze. She didn't want her mom to know. "Oh, just a school project," she said quickly. Sarah nodded and went to her room. But Emily didn't stop. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Someone shared her video on a Facebook page called Humans of Hope. Within 24 hours, it had over 2 million views. Comments started flooding in. "This woman deserves everything. Tell us how to help. She reminds me of my mom." Emily sat there staring at the screen, tears streaming down her face. Her story, her mom's story, was being seen by the world. The next morning, she woke up to hundreds of emails. People wanted to donate. Some offered jobs. Others just sent words of love. Even a small local newspaper contacted her for an interview. When Sarah came home that night, Emily couldn't hold it in anymore. "Mom," she said, "you need to see this." She showed her the video on the laptop, the one where Sarah's tired face and warm smile touched millions of hearts. At first, Sarah was silent. Then tears rolled down her cheeks. "Oh, Emily, you shouldn't have done this," she whispered. Emily held her hands tightly. "Mom, the world needed to see how amazing you are." Sarah smiled through her tears. "But sweetheart, we don't need anyone's pity." "It's not pity," Emily said softly. "It's love. It's people who care." Within weeks, donations started to come in. Emily used every dollar carefully. She paid off the overdue bills first. Then, she began saving for something bigger, the dream. With the help of a local community center, she found a small shop for rent, old, dusty, but filled with light from big windows. When she showed it to her mom, Sarah laughed. "Emily, we can't afford this." Emily grinned. "We can. We're not alone anymore." They painted the walls together, one corner at a time. Sarah baked her first loaf of bread in years, her hands shaking but steady with joy. The smell of warm bread filled the empty shop. For the first time, Sarah's smile wasn't tired, it was full of life. They named it Sarah's Sunlight Bakery. Emily chose the name because, as she said, "Mom, you've been my sunlight all these years." On opening day, there was a line outside the door. People came from nearby towns, some even said they drove for hours just to meet Sarah. News cameras were there. Reporters asked questions. Sarah could hardly believe it. "This can't be real," she whispered. Emily squeezed her hand. "It's real, Mom. You made it real." As Sarah handed a little boy his first cookie, she looked at Emily and smiled. For once, she didn't feel like the woman who never slept. She felt like a woman who finally woke up to her own dream. That night, after closing the bakery, Sarah sat by the window holding a warm cup of tea. The lights from the street reflected in her eyes. She turned to Emily and said softly, "Do you know what I wanted the most, all these years?" Emily shook her head. Sarah smiled. "To see you happy, and now, I think I am too." Emily hugged her mom tightly, whispering, "This is just the beginning, Mom." The morning of the grand opening felt like a dream. The sign outside the little shop read in soft blue letters, "Sarah's Sunlight Bakery." The smell of freshly baked bread floated down the street, drawing curious faces toward the windows. Inside, the walls were painted a warm yellow, sunlight spilling through the glass. The counters sparkled, and behind them stood Sarah Miller wearing a clean white apron, her hair tied back, and the biggest smile she had worn in years. Emily stood beside her, arranging cupcakes and cookies. Every batch was made with love and a story. "Mom," Emily said softly, "are you nervous?" Sarah laughed. "Honey, I've cleaned offices, served coffee, and worked in gas stations for years. But this. She looked around the shop with teary eyes. This feels like magic. The clock hit 9. Outside, a small crowd had gathered: neighbors, friends, people who had seen Emily's video online. Some brought flowers, others brought cameras. When Sarah unlocked the door, the crowd clapped. She froze for a second, her eyes wide. Then she smiled shyly and said, "Welcome to Sarah's Sunlight Bakery. Everything here is baked with hope." People laughed, clapped again, and entered the shop. Within minutes, the display shelves were almost empty. The bread sold out first, then the cookies, then the pies. At one table, a little girl looked up at Sarah and said, "Your cookies taste like my grandma's." Sarah knelt down and smiled. "That's the best thing anyone could say to me." The girl's mother smiled too. "We saw your story online. You're an inspiration." Sarah didn't know what to say. All her life, she had been invisible, a woman behind a counter, a name on a paycheck, a shadow in a crowd. Now, people knew her. They didn't just see a tired worker. They saw a woman who never gave up. Later that day, a reporter from a local TV station came in. "Sarah Miller?" he asked, holding a microphone. "Yes," she said nervously. "We're doing a feature on inspiring women in Ohio. Would you mind sharing your story?" Sarah looked at Emily, who nodded with a smile. And for the first time in her life, Sarah told her story out loud, not just the struggles, but the love that kept her going. She ended with words that touched everyone's hearts. "I worked 3 jobs for years because I believed my daughter deserved more than I had. But now I realize she believed the same for me." When the story aired on television that night, it spread like wildfire. Comments, messages, and phone calls poured in. People from across the country wanted to visit Sarah's Sunlight Bakery. Weeks passed, and business grew faster than either of them imagined. Emily helped manage the social media page while Sarah focused on baking. Customers lined up before sunrise. Some came just to meet Sarah and take a picture with her. But Sarah never changed. She still greeted everyone with the same gentle warmth, still remembered names, still packed each order with care. Every box carried a little card that read, "Baked with love because love built this bakery." One evening, after closing, Sarah sat down with Emily at the back table. The bakery lights were dim, the smell of bread still in the air. Sarah looked around the cozy shop and said, "I still can't believe this is real." Emily smiled. "It's real, Mom. You made it happen." Sarah shook her head. "No, sweetheart. You did. I just followed your light." Emily reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "Mom, you worked 3 jobs, every single day, just so I could have a future. This bakery is your reward. You earned every brick, every loaf of bread." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You know, Emily," she said softly, "for years, I used to look out at the stars and ask God why my life was so hard. But now I know, it was just preparing me for this moment." Emily smiled. "You always taught me that hope doesn't die, it just waits." A week later, Sarah got a letter in the mail. It was from a local women's foundation. They wanted to feature her bakery in a national magazine as an example of inspiring small businesses. Sarah read the letter 3 times, unable to believe it. She looked at Emily with tears in her eyes. "Emily, people used to forget my name at work. Now they want to write about me." Emily laughed through happy tears. "See, Mom. The world finally sees what I've always seen." Months passed, and the bakery continued to bloom. Sarah started hiring local women, single mothers, widows, and women who had struggled like her. She trained them, encouraged them, and told them, "If I can start again, so can you." The bakery became more than just a shop. It became a place of second chances. Every morning, laughter filled the kitchen. Flour dusted the counters, and the smell of fresh bread welcomed everyone who walked through the door. And every morning, Sarah placed a note by the register. The same words she once wrote to her daughter years ago. "Good morning, sunshine. Remember to smile today." That night, as the bakery lights turned off and the street outside grew quiet, Emily stood at the door watching her mom lock up. Sarah turned to her and said, "I think I finally understand what happiness feels like." Emily smiled and hugged her. "You deserve every bit of it, Mom." And as the two of them walked home under the soft glow of the streetlights, Sarah whispered, "I used to be the woman who never slept, but now, I'm the woman who finally dreams." Months turned into a year, and Sarah's Sunlight Bakery became the heart of Willow Creek. Every morning, people lined up outside before the doors even opened. Children came for cookies. Old neighbors came just to say hello. And Sarah greeted every single person with that same warm smile, the smile she once lost but had now found again. She still wore her old apron, patched in places, but it had become a symbol, a sign of hope and hard work. Emily handled everything online. She posted videos of her mom baking, laughing, and teaching other women how to decorate cakes. She never used fancy cameras or expensive edits, just simple videos that showed real love. And people loved that. Within a few months, the bakery's YouTube channel had over 1 million subscribers. Every video started with Sarah saying, "Good morning, sunshine," just like she used to write on those little notes years ago. One morning, Emily got an email that made her heart stop. It was from The Morning View, one of the biggest national TV shows in the US. They wanted to invite Sarah and Emily Miller to share their story live on air. Emily ran to the bakery, holding her phone in the air. "Mom! You won't believe this," she shouted. Sarah looked up from behind the counter, confused. "What is it, honey?" Emily smiled so wide her eyes sparkled. "Mom, they want you on national TV." Sarah laughed nervously. "Oh, sweetheart, no one wants to see an old lady like me on TV." Emily shook her head. "Mom, they want to see hope. They want to see you." A week later, they flew to New York City. It was Sarah's first time on a plane. She held Emily's hand tightly during takeoff, whispering, "I can't believe this is real." Emily smiled. "Mom, it's real because you never gave up." When they arrived at the studio, bright lights and busy people surrounded them. Sarah was nervous, her hands trembling slightly. But when the cameras started rolling, and the host asked her to share her story, she took a deep breath and began. "I used to think my life was just work and struggle," she said softly. "But now I know, sometimes your hardest days are just chapters before something beautiful begins." She told the world about working 3 jobs, about her daughter finding that old notebook, and about how love not money had built their bakery. Emily listened beside her, tears in her eyes. When the host asked her what made her do all of this, Emily replied, "My mom gave up her dreams for me. I just wanted to give them back." The audience stood up and clapped. Some people were crying. Even the host wiped away a tear. By the next morning, their interview had gone viral. Clips of Sarah and Emily spread across every social media platform. People all over the world shared it, calling them the mother and daughter who baked hope. Celebrities mentioned them in tweets. Companies offered to sponsor the bakery. Schools invited Emily to speak about kindness and gratitude. Charities reached out, wanting to partner with Sarah to support single mothers. The world had fallen in love with their story not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Back in Willow Creek, the bakery became busier than ever. People traveled from different states just to buy Sarah's bread or to meet her in person. But Sarah never acted like a celebrity. She still swept the floor after closing. She still packed leftovers for the homeless man who slept near the park. And she still left a small note for Emily every morning. One day, Emily came to the bakery and found a new note on the counter. It said, "Dreams don't die, sweetheart. They just wait for the right hands to bring them back to life." Emily smiled, holding the note close to her heart. A few months later, Emily gave a speech at a charity event in New York. The hall was full of people, business owners, students, and single parents who had come to hear her. She stood on the stage, nervous but calm. Her voice was soft but powerful as she said, "My mom worked 3 jobs so I could eat, sleep, and dream. She never asked for help. She never complained. But I realized something: when you love someone that deeply, the world deserves to know." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "You don't have to be rich to give back. You just need to remember the people who never gave up on you." The entire room stood and clapped. That moment became one of the most shared speeches of the year, viewed by millions. And just like that, their story became more than a viral video. It became a movement of kindness. Months later, Sarah's Sunlight Bakery opened new branches in 3 more states. But each shop had the same rule. Only single mothers were hired first. Sarah believed they deserved a chance, the same chance she never had. On the bakery's 1-year anniversary, a reporter asked Sarah, "What does success mean to you now?" Sarah looked at Emily, smiled, and said, "Success isn't money or fame. Success is when your child grows up and makes your dreams come true." That night, as the lights of the bakery dimmed, Sarah and Emily sat together near the window. The same window where Sarah used to rest after long, painful nights. Now, she sat there with peace in her heart. Outside, the neon sign glowed softly: Sarah's Sunlight Bakery. Inside, a mother and daughter held hands, surrounded by the smell of fresh bread and the warmth of dreams fulfilled. Sarah whispered, "You know, Emily, I used to pray that one day you'd have a better life than me." Emily smiled. "And I prayed that one day you'd finally rest, Mom." Sarah looked at her daughter, tears glistening in her eyes. "Well," she said with a laugh, "I guess both our prayers came true." And for the first time in her life, Sarah didn't have to set an alarm for the next morning. She could finally sleep peacefully knowing her story had touched the world.